23 games left. I wanted to break down where things kind of stand. It's been a week, and Spurs are going to resume play in a couple days. So I figured I'd jump on and do a breakdown of what's to come, what's happened, and just the current makeup of the team, the rotations, who's playing well, what do we need to see from who, what do we need to see continue, what needs to change. I mean, what are we hoping for here? So, that being said, overall, what is the goal of this home stretch of the season? I think when a team's not contending, the main thing is development. We want to see that. We want to see young players improve, show consistent improvement, and just get better. So, with Derek being shipped off to Boston, Devin is the starter. And we had a really short sample size. We had 4 games, and that's it. That's what we've seen. And 3 of those went really well with Devin, and he had 1 off game. And I think that's what we're going to expect for the rest of the year. I don't think Devin's just going to go berserk every game like he did against Atlanta. But I think we can see some consistent defense and a lot of utility on offense, especially next to DeJounte, who is proven that he's ready to take on the primary ball handler plus. And I say plus because he doesn't have that pressure release of Derek to bring the ball up now. It's DeJounte. And they're going to run plays, scoring plays for Devin, much like they did for Kawhi at times, but I don't think you're going to see Devin dribbling the ball up and running pick and roll. I think you might see Keldon do a couple things with the ball in his hand, but without Derek in that starting unit, you're just going to see a lot more lean on DeJounte. So that'll be good. We know DeJounte is ready and capable of that. Like I said in the previous video, I think DeJounte is ready to maintain his stellar play and then some, because I think the All-Star game showed him that he belongs, and it's only going to motivate him. At least that's my hope. But I really do believe with his mentality and him as a relentless worker, I think he will only improve this year. And with shouldering more of the load, he'll have an opportunity to showcase that. So Devin and DeJounte, new backcourt, got Doug McDermott, the obligatory three-point shooter within the, three-point sniper. He's a specialist. I mean, for the most part, he does have his cutting abilities, but he's there to space the floor and be a consistent three-point shooter. I think he's just kind of I hate to say this because I like what he brings to the team, but he's kind of a formality on the offense. Just you need a shooter to make things breathe, especially when you're starting Jakob Poeltl at center, who doesn't stretch the floor at all. You just need a consistent. I mean, he's the lungs of the offense, so to speak. I mean, that's a silly analogy, but that's what he is. And just want to see Doug be Doug. Keldon has improved a bit over the last stretch of games. I mean, this year, obviously, the shooting has been insane. He's top 5 in shooting in the league. But the last few games, he's really taken it up another notch. I mean, he's scoring. I mean, he's not consistently doing it, but he hit the 30 mark a couple times. Let's see. Got it pulled up a second ago. So Keldon, these aren't the last games. Over the last few games, I think he's averaging around 17 over the last 7 games. No, he's averaging 17 point something over the last 7 games. And his shooting has maintained its stellar mark. I've always been worried about him as the 4 on the team, and I think we know that rebounding is a weakness. But if he's going to carry such a scoring load, I think we're going to live with it for now. But let's see what he's done over the last couple games. So, yeah, 22, 13, 16, 26. I mean, he's scoring a good amount. He's playing 30-plus minutes. He's been doing that consistently, especially since Derek left. I think we're going to be seeing more and more of that. I think Keldon is really cementing himself as I don't want to say foundational piece or a piece that the Spurs are necessarily committing to building around, so to speak, but I think he's definitely someone who's worth extending and moving forward with because his trajectory is looking really good. I would consider DeJounte to be the only one that the Spurs know they're building around right now. Jakob is probably the next closest thing just because of his consistency at a position that you're not going to find what he brings to the table very easily. I mean, you can't name but a few centers that you'd rather have over Jakob. I think it's Jokic, Embiid, maybe Jared Allen, maybe Valanciunas. But besides those four, if you don't consider Giannis a center, who are you putting in front of him? Who would you rather have? Jakob Poeltl he's a big man who has quick feet for his size, runs the floor, low maintenance, plays great D. His offense is improving. I think he's very serviceable. I don't think he's going to put you over the edge. I don't know if he moves the needle necessarily, but I think he's something you want to build around. Aside from them two, I think everything else is in flux, and I think as far as development and what they want to see these last 23 games is who's sticking around. Is Lonnie sticking around? Lonnie's done a lot better these last few games, right? I think the footsteps of Devin Vassell really dominating that position in those minutes, and then Trey Jones taking some guard minutes off the bench. And Primo. I don't think Primo's done too much, but I think Lonnie is aware of what Primo can be. So maybe the moving of Derek and then him not doing so well the first game out. I think versus Atlanta, 2 points, 0 field goals made out of 3, 2 turnovers, 13 minutes, minus 16. And that's minus 16 in a blowout. That's Derek White, the guy in front of you who's been in front of you for a few years, gone. And that's your first game out. Wake-up call, maybe? I don't know. Lonnie's always been streaky, so it could just be that was the end of the down streak that seemed to last a long time. It was the worst stretch of his career. But the last 3 games, Chicago, New Orleans, OKC, he's looked a lot better. And when I think about young Spurs and them being as good as we know they can be, I don't know. Is that the right way to say it? When I think of young Spurs reaching their current ceiling and playing as good as they currently can be, Lonnie Walker has to be that guy that we know he has in him. He has such a bag of tricks. He's so athletic, and his only issue is consistency, and boy, is it an issue. Last 3 games, 3 in a row. Let's see if things are changing. Let's see if he's turning a corner for the season. Because if he can close out the season, 23 games. It's not unfeasible that he can make a run at being the guy we want him to be. So I'm really looking closely at Lonnie. I think what you would want to see is him kind of taking some of Primo minutes, because Primo's still young, and you really would hope that your draft pick from a few years ago in Lonnie would start to develop and take minutes from the rookie. You kind of want that, but Primo still has a lot of potential as well. I don't think he's shown it, but I think we've seen flashes, and that's what Lonnie was back then. But Lonnie's at a point in his career where this is like the home stretch for his contract, so let's see what he does. The weird thing is, though, if he plays up the end of the year, are the Spurs going to look at that as, yeah, we're ready to throw money at him? Or is it going to be like, it's still a consistency thing, and then other teams are going to look at throwing more money at him? Kind of a weird situation. I think it maybe plays into him going elsewhere, but that's just me. I haven't put too much thought into that. But let's get into the season breakdown for the last 23 games. So the Spurs are back in action this Friday at Washington. Porzingis is supposed to play. He's supposed to make his debut. I'm skeptical, but we'll see. That's a Spurs win. I don't see how the Spurs lose to Washington, at Washington, coming off of what they came off of. DeJounte coming off of All-Star Weekend. And when I say coming off of what they came off of, bad words, but the streak they were on before All-Star break and how they were peaking. I think that the Spurs start this stretch with a win. Back-to-back, the next night they're at Miami. Yeah, that's going to be a tough game to win. I don't think the Spurs win that, but if they come out and win 2 in a row on a back-to-back after All-Star Weekend, feeling pretty good. Another tough one at Memphis. That team they've just found themselves this year. And I think I heard, I don't know who said it, but they don't even really realize what they're on track for or what they're doing. They're a playoff lock and high-seeded playoff lock. I think they're just a young team that's just out there playing just dumb and free, and that's dangerous. But that's another game I don't see the Spurs winning. I mean, those are just two teams that are better than them right now. Maybe not more talented in the long run, but definitely better right now. I think Spurs start 1-3. Versus Sacramento at home, win. I know they have Sabonis. I know De'Aaron Fox can breathe now with Halliburton gone. But, I mean, Spurs are better than Sacramento. Coming home for the first time after the rodeo road trip, that's got to be a win. That's going to be a hyped game, especially if the Spurs can manage to go 2-1 over those first 3 games. I think there's going to be a lot of hype. I think it'll be a crowded game, good crowd in the AT&T Center. I'll try to go to that one. But that's got to be a Spurs win. 2-2. At Charlotte, that's coin flip. That's a good game. Hey, we get to see DeJounte versus LaMelo after they showed out together in the All-Star game. That'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go biased on this one. Let's go Spurs win. No Gordon Hayward. He's still out with the ankle thing, and there's no indication that he's coming back anytime soon. Their center rotation is pretty weird. Is Mason Plumlee going to match up against Jakob? But then again, if they go small and PJ Washington is the 5, who's the Spurs small ball 5 that matches up with PJ? I think it's Keldon. It's probably Keldon, but I don't mind that. Miles Bridges is scary though. That's a toss-up. That's close. Let's go Spurs win 3-2. Versus LA, no AD, at home. Damn. That's tough. Remember that game earlier in the year where AD played and the LA Lakers took over the AT&T Center? Let's get some revenge. Let's go 4-2. 4-2, feeling good. Home versus Toronto. Very tough game. Toronto plays well together. They're an experienced group. Kind of team that might give the Spurs trouble. I think that's not looking too good. It's not looking too good. We're going to go with a loss versus Toronto. Utah, tough game at home. Same thing as Toronto, but even better. Just a well-oiled machine, to use an old Spursism phrase. But they are that. Got a bunch of smart vets. They're going to miss Joe Ingles, but I mean, they have the team that's, I think, poised to give Spurs trouble. That's a loss. Indiana, win. Halliburton, DeJounte, that's going to be fun. Is Miles Turner going to be back? I don't know. I haven't heard any indication that he will. I'm recording this on Tuesday. I think on Wednesday we'll get all the injury updates. I think we'll hear who's going to be playing right after the break, who's going to be a little bit more time. We're going to get all that Wednesday, maybe even some Thursday. But yeah, we don't know yet. Versus Minnesota, tough game. They're good. They have good players. I mean, they just have a bunch of good players. They have Cat, who is calling himself the best shooting big of all time, which might be true. He might be the best three-point shooting big of all time. Space on the floor, that kind of hurts Jakob's utility. But Jakob is quick. But it does hurt Jakob's main utility, which is rim protection and just being big down there. D'Angelo Russell doesn't scare me versus DeJounte and Devin. That's a tough game. That's tough. That might be one the Spurs slip on because it's not a big game, and I feel the Spurs play up to better opponents. I mean, you can see that from some of the games they've won this year. Golden State, Milwaukee, those games. Let's go loss. Versus OKC at home. Spurs have had some inexplicable performances against OKC. I'm thinking of one earlier in the year at OKC where they just laid an egg. But I'm hoping the Spurs are behind, or laying eggs are beyond the Spurs now. I'm hoping that's a thing that they're kind of going to get over now. Just these random dud games. Saw a couple of them this year. I don't think there's been too many. At Golden State, I'd love to say that the Spurs are going to continue that trend of just upsetting against the better teams because they play up to their opponents. You know what DeJounte does. I mean, there's a chance, but, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say Golden State wins that game. Clay's back. That'll be fun. First time playing Clay in 2 years. Be cool to see. At Portland, win. At New Orleans, I'm saying at Portland win. I'm brushing it off, but I'm hoping the Spurs have turned the corner in terms of laying eggs or not. So I'm hoping no eggs will be laid at Portland. I'm a betting man. Spurs win. At NOLA, those scores might give us trouble. Vucevic gives us trouble. Vucevic, almost a Spur killer, right? I mean, I feel like every time the Spurs go up against him, he's having a big game. He killed us when he was on the Grizzlies. Shoot, that's a tough game. That's a 4 o'clock game, a weird start time. That's probably a loss. Ugh, I hate to do it. If I'm betting, yeah, I mean, I don't have enough information yet. If I know the Spurs are playing the way they played the last 4 games, that's a win. But I don't know if they're going to maintain that level of play. I'm going to call it a loss just to be on the safe side. But I'm 55% sure they'll lose. It's not like I'm adamant they're going to lose that game. At Houston, I'm betting Spurs are winning. Houston has given Spurs trouble a couple times. They have some young, quick players, but like I said, I don't think they're all the way turning the corner, but I think they are better now than they have been early in the year, and I'm really thinking they're not going to be laying eggs, so let's call it a win. Home versus Memphis. Memphis still gives the Spurs problems. It's a home game, but it's Memphis. I'm going to call it a loss. Back-to-back versus Portland. That's juicy. I mean, it's really hard to win those back-to-back games, though. It is really hard to win those games because there's a revenge factor, there's a scouting factor. It's not the playoffs, so it's not like as deep of an X's and O's battle, although that's going to be in play. But I feel like it's just really hard to win those back-to-back versus same opponent games. Under 24-hour rest. Oh, no. It's a day between. Shoot, they're probably going to split it just because it's hard to win those back-to-back games. And it's Portland. It's Portland, though. They don't have anything right now. What if Dame miraculously returns? I'm going to say split. At Denver. And you call an upset. I think, do you remember that game earlier in the year where the Spurs had the game all but won? I think it was like the first week of the game. One of the first 3 games of the year, maybe. First 5 games of the year. They had the game tied or close in the last minutes of the game, and Denver pulled away at the very end with some weird stuff. Let's call an upset there. Let's call a Spurs win there. At Minnesota, I'm going to call it a loss. I was on the fence of the one at home. I think it was at home. Yeah, being there is tough. Let's call that a loss. Home versus Golden State, and at this point, the Spurs are... I haven't been keeping track of the record. I'll go back. But the Spurs, they're fighting for seeding at this point. The team is not going to let down easily. They're not going to bend over. So that's going to be an interesting one. At home versus Golden State, motivation. Golden State might be resting at that point. They got a top seed pretty much locked in. And by that point, they probably will have it even more so. Another upset? How's the season going to end? Let's call it a win. At Dallas to end the season. Really weird without Porzingis now. They're starting Maxi Kleber, or is it Kleber they're starting? Or Powell, or both? Dorian Finney-Smith, and then Luka. It's so hard to beat Luka. Devin Vassell versus Luka is going to be interesting and fun. I look forward to that. Vassell on Luka. I love Vassell's defense. It's at Dallas, end of year. Spurs have a lot on the line. Dallas probably fighting for seeding as well. Spurs going to end the year with a W or a loss? I mean, if I'm a betting man, that's a loss, just because of Luka and being on the road. So, let's go back through it. Let's tally it up. I hope I remember what I picked. If not, we're just going to roll with it. So, 1-0. 1-1. 1-2. 2-2. What did I call this? Call this a loss. 2-3. 3-3. 3-4. 3-5. 4-5. 4-6. 5-6. 6-6. I'm calling it a win. 6-7. 7-7. 7-8. 8-8. Damn, it's going 500. 8-1. I'm sorry, 8-9. 9-10. Upset. 10-10. 10-11. Upset. 11-11. 11-12. So I'm calling the Spurs to go just below 500 to end the year. So, you know what? I'm a Spurs fan. I'm going to say 12-11. I'm going to predict 12-11. I'm going to say one of those games that I was calling a loss is going to be a win. Let's pick it. I don't see the Spurs beating Utah at home. Even though it's at home. Just Utah's too good. They're too experienced. Unless the Spurs have rounded that corner totally, which it's a long shot. It's possible, but it's a long shot. Let's say the at New Orleans is a win. And then, yeah. But 12-11, around 500, that keeps them in the fight. Other teams are in the fight. They might get the 10th seed. But they could exceed those expectations. I was pretty harsh on them. And I wasn't betting thinking the Spurs have totally rounded that corner. I think they've made strides, but, you know, if the Spurs keep up that recent level of play, they're going to win more than 12 games. I mean, I don't think it's impossible for them to, you know, do like a 13-10, 14-9. That's not out of the question. I don't think they'll do worse than that, though. I don't think they'll do worse than 11-12, which is my initial prediction. I'm much more confident in them not laying eggs against these lesser opponents. I say lesser, but, you know, not top opponents. So, yeah. Let's see how the Spurs' schedule ranks as far as difficulty of the rest of the schedule. So they're smack in the middle. As y'all just saw... Ooh, clicking things. As y'all just saw, Spurs play Golden State twice and Memphis twice. That could be 4 L's there. I called one a win versus Golden State. And then they play Miami, Utah, Dallas, Denver. Yeah, tough games. Let's see how the other teams contending for the play-in are looking. Lakers, third hardest schedule in the league. I remember hearing this. That's crazy. No AD? Are they going to shut LeBron down if things start looking bad? The Spurs have their second round pick. So if the Lakers just totally shit their pants, I mean, the Spurs might get like a 34th round pick or a 34th pick. Maybe worse a little bit, between like 34 and 40. It'd be pretty cool. It's almost a first rounder. Minnesota's a little bit ahead of us, but they have the 6th hardest. New Orleans, 8th hardest. Sacramento, 9th hardest. Houston's kind of not there, but 11th hardest. OKC's 14th. Let's see who's got it easier than the Spurs that we're competing against. Basically no one. Portland's kind of there, but I don't think Dame's coming back, so... I mean, it's not by a lot, but... the Spurs have an easier route than the teams they're competing against. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. That gives me some hope. Imagine this. The Spurs get into the play-in. They're the 10th seed. They knock off the Lakers. They get Lakers out of there. LeBron's playing. because if he has a chance, he's not going to give up on it. I mean, AD might come back first round of the playoffs, and the Spurs get LeBron out of there. In San Antonio, let's say they're the 9th seed, or whatever, however it shakes out. Spurs play LA at home, or even there. That'd be so delicious. Oh, that'd be juicy. And then the other teams like Sacramento. Spurs could beat Sacramento. I think the Spurs need to make the playoffs. I don't think... Okay, the Spurs aren't going to tank. I think there's a confusion between like tanking and just losing games. I think people call just losing games tanking a lot of times. When you're young and you're not buying these high-end players because you're young and you don't want to invest in these players, that's as much of tanking as you're going to see from a team. I don't think teams are going out there and throwing games or just sitting players down for no reason. I think maybe injuries will be more cautiously dealt with, but these days you're really not going to see teams throwing. I think the direction in free agency where you don't sign X high player up here or Y high level player over here, you're not signing those guys, that's your tank. And the Spurs just committing to the young team, that's the tank. So for anyone saying Spurs should tank the rest of the year, are you saying they should go throw? Because that's not going to happen. Or are you saying they should rest DeJounte? Because I don't think that's going to happen. So they're not tanking. I mean, they're not going to go tank. So what are they supposed to do? They go win games, and they get better. And you get better, and winning is an indication that you're getting better. At least I would think. So, and the way to win and be in the most opportunities to get better is to raise the stakes, and that's making the playoffs. So if the Spurs can make the playoffs this year with the young squad, first year without the vets, that's a huge step forward. Because you have a team that makes the playoffs, and it's all drafted players, young players, and like Doug. Young players and Doug made the playoffs. Is that not super promising? That's extremely promising. That's like young OKC promising. That's an exaggeration, but maybe not. I mean, maybe Keldon's an all-star in a couple years. But that's like, you have a team of, what do they average? Like 26, 24 years old, somewhere in there? Or lower than that. It's a young-ass team. And if they make the playoffs and they can win a couple games in the playoffs, who would they play? Golden State, maybe? They get the 8th seed or the 7th seed? Golden State, maybe? I mean, Spurs will probably win one game in that series. But just to be there. The Spurs can make it with this young squad with 3 draft picks in this upcoming draft. And even if the Spurs win out, they have 3 picks. That's 3 shots at the guy, or you move up and get the guy you want. And I think the Spurs have shown they don't need to be picking in the top 5 to get the guy they want. Kawhi, Tony, Manu, DeJounte, Keldon. And that's just to name a few. So, yeah, I think just, I'm very hopeful. I'm feeling very good. DeJounte is an all-star, and he's going to lead the team. Devin looks like he's ready to take on that new load, and I'm really excited for that backcourt. So we'll see what happens. I'm going 12-11, but I am ready to be proven wrong in a good way. I don't think they'll go worse than 11-12. So with that, I'll see you on the next one.